We continue our discussion of the determinants of supply. These are the factors which will cause a change in supply, that is, they will cause a shift in the supply curve. We're talking here about the price of related goods, goods that are related in production. So changes in the prices of goods that are related in production may affect producers and in turn affect supply in one of two ways, depending on whether the goods are substitutes or complements in production. So in this case, we're talking about goods that are related in production, not goods that are related in consumption. We're not talking about butter and margarine, which are substitutes in consumption. We're not talking about peanut butter and jelly, which are complements in consumption. These are goods which are related in terms of production. So for example, two goods are substitutes in production if they are produced using the same resources. Wheat and corn are good examples of two goods which are substitutes in production. Why? Because these two goods use essentially the same resources, the same land, the same labor, the same capital. And so, if the price of wheat were to rise, we would expect more production, greater production of wheat. As the price of wheat rises, wheat becomes more profitable, and so farmers will devote more resources to the production of wheat, which in turn will mean fewer resources are being used to produce corn. So an increase in the price of an increase in the price of wheat. If the price of wheat rises, we would expect to see an increase in the quantity of wheat supplied. Wheat becomes more profitable. Farmers produce more wheat. More resources are being devoted to wheat production. This in turn will mean that fewer resources are being used in corn production. So the supply of corn will decrease. So in this case, we see the relationship between two goods that are substitutes in production. If the price, in this case, if the price of wheat rises, we see a decrease in the supply of its substitute, corn. Now consider two goods that are complements in production. Two goods are complements in production if the production of one good naturally results in greater production of the other good. So for example, beef and leather are complements in production. Leather is a byproduct of beef. Bacon and pork chops, production of one leads to greater production of the other. Crude oil and natural gas are also complements in production. So if the price of beef were to rise, let's look at beef and leather as our examples. If the price of beef were to rise, then by the law of supply, we know that the quantity supplied of beef will increase. Greater production of beef, well, this will naturally lead to increased production of leather. And so we will see an increase in the supply of leather, because at every price there is now more leather being produced. This is an increase in the supply of leather. So in this case, we see the relationship between two goods that are complements in production. An increase in the price of one good leads to an increase in the supply of the other.